The shooting range. Hi, this is Andrew, and I'll be your voice today. Nice to meet you all again. In this episode, pages of history, the short path of half-track vehicles, triathlon, early guided CAS, and metal beasts, the British Brigand. The latest updates gave many aircraft an ability to employ their suspended armament individually. This seemingly small change produced a major effect on their efficiency in assault, and today's metal beast is one of these updated planes. Please welcome the British light bomber Brigand B-1. A brigand is a thief attacking people traveling through the countryside, and you'll soon see why this name is rather suitable. The aircraft's power plant is two 18-cylinder radial engines in nacelles. Self-sealing fuel tanks are found in the spaces between the wing spars. The crew is protected by steel plates and bulletproof glass. Fixed armament includes four 20mm autocannons in the bottom part of the fuselage. The aircraft can also carry bombs with calibers between 500 and 1,000 pounds, as well as rockets. This British plane can start proving its name even in air battles, laying on absolute brigandage. Like other bombers, it spawns at an altitude, compensating for its moderate climb rate. But the Brigand's fixed armament is more typical for a heavy fighter, being perfect for destroying enemy bombers. Not only that, its ammo pool is big enough to forget about sparse use and go full in. Once the heavy targets are done, you can even engage enemy fighters. By that time, most of them will still be lower than you. If you manage to dive onto someone else's tail, just blaze through. If they're asking for a frontal attack, don't hesitate to respond. Four 20mm autocannons in your fuselage allow for 2-kilometer hits, while your own armor will protect the pilot well from enemy bullets. However, should your first attack fail, the rest of the battle might be sad, with almost no options to survive alone. This machine quickly loses energy while maneuvering, becoming a huge, clumsy target. You won't be able to speed out either. Most fighters have a much higher flutter limit. Now, mixed battles are where this British plane truly shines. It can carry up to 3,000 pounds of bombs and 16 rockets at once. On top of that, its cannons have AP rounds that handle thin roof armor excellently. This turns the Brigand into a great hunter for tanks and an even greater one for SPAAGs. Here's what a typical attack looks like. First, fly 2 kilometers above the ground and have a look around enemy spawn points. There's a high chance you'll see anti-aircraft guns, which would soon become your priority. Start an attack in a sharp dive. If the enemy spots you or even opens fire, shoot a few rockets at them and make a sharp turn. Open compartment vehicles don't even need a direct hit. Rocket explosions will incapacitate any crew in the vicinity. If the gunner's distracted, you can punish them with a volley from your cannons to save some rockets. For heavy tanks, the Brigand has 3 bomb drops, and with these calibers, you won't have any issues. Just remember to look around for enemy aircraft. You'll need to flee to safety if there are any. With no altitude advantage, there's no sense in even trying to handle enemy fighters alone. Half-track military vehicles had a bright but short path. They were first created in the early 20th century, then had a quick burst in popularity in the interwar period, got built in tens of thousands during the Second World War, but later were replaced by fully wheeled or tracked vehicles. So we can't help but ask, if the design was good, why was it scrapped? If it had been bad from the beginning, why build so many? Let's try to find out. First, we need to admit that there were multiple types of half-tracked vehicles. For instance, the Soviet Union based its half-track trucks on regular wheeled ones, achieving a higher off-road capability at a low price. They were later replaced by tracked or four-wheel drive machines. The Germans chose a different path, creating a whole line of half-track military vehicles. They were vastly different from those converted regular trucks. Expensive and complicated, the German half-tracks were cutting-edge tech. They had rubber-cushioned tracks, unique semi-automatic transmissions, and a whole line of specialized engines. None of this had been done to save funds. So if it wasn't the price, what was so attractive for the Germans? Fortunately, we don't have to speculate. The engineers gave their reasons before the war. The army wanted mobile, reliable trucks. Wheeled ones had inferior cross-country capability and hauling capacity, and creating quick, reliable tracked machines with the technology that they had was rather difficult. One of the main reasons was handling. Let's look at a typical piece of German World War II-era engineering, the Panzer III. Its turning mechanism has 4 brakes. 2 stopping brakes block the left and the right track. Pretty straightforward. The 2 others are clutch brakes required for the planetary mechanisms. Braking to move forward? The idea might sound strange, but that's exactly the way many tracked vehicles work. When you move forward, the clutch brakes are engaged while the stopping brakes are off. To turn, you need to engage one of the clutch brakes and engage the stopping brake on the same track. That means that the tank driver is constantly engaging and disengaging brakes. The metal wears off, producing a lot of heat, and the brake mechanism requires a lot of cooling. The Germans even created special brake vents to let more air in. Soviet tanks used side clutches instead of planetary mechanisms, using multiple discs like in cars. They wore off and heated up too, but also needed more precise adjustments and careful driving. If the side clutch was poorly set up, an inexperienced driver could easily burn it out. And that's where the half-track machines come in. They can turn with the use of their front wheels, not just by stopping tracks, and have much better handling at high speeds. So the German half-tracks were much more than the Soviet trucks with their back wheels replaced by tracks. They were pretty much the opposite, tracked vehicles with front wheels added. After the war, the engineers continued their work on steering mechanisms and made handling tracked vehicles more convenient and reliable. Many modern tanks and armored vehicles don't even need brakes to turn. The front wheels became a burden, and the half-track became another page of history. We had some CAS in Metal Beasts today, so why don't we enjoy it some more in Triathlon? And while we're at it, let's find out which early guided air-to-surface munition carrier can handle the tests the best. Please welcome the American A4E Skyhawk fighter, a squadron vehicle, and its upgraded Model N from the Israeli tree. Italy and Germany sent their G91s, modifications R1 and R3. Great Britain is represented by the Scimitar F Mark I, and France brought their Super Mystère B2. As usual, all aircraft will be fully upgraded and with a minimal fuel load. We'll start with a race across the English Channel. Our contestants will have to take off from a British airfield and reach the French coast first. No suspended armament required. The fighters line up at the start, close their canopies, and warm up the engines. Let's go. The machines thrust forward and take off. The Israeli Skyhawk shows the best start, but the British plane overtakes it over the water with ease. We see the American plane flying third for now, but the Super Mystère is shortening the gap, and it manages to overtake the Skyhawk in the second half of the race. The fifth and sixth racers are the G91s. The Italian version is a little bit lighter than the German one and thus flies faster. Okay, time for some CAS. We'll start with the classics: bombs, rockets, and cannons. We'll take 10 German Leopards for targets. The G91 drew the first match. Their pilots went for rockets, 38 for each aircraft. They managed to destroy 3 tanks each with short volleys. The Italian team is done, but the German aircraft dives for another attack with its 30mm cannons. Look, they destroyed 2 more targets. A nice compensation for having to carry heavier weapons in the previous stage. Now the British plane is making its move. It destroys 2 targets with bombs and then tries to go the German way with 4 cannons. The pilot stops trying, though, after a few attempts. The aircraft won't exit dives well. Here's the French aircraft's turn. The first target gets a couple of bombs, 3 tanks are full of missiles, and the cannons set 3 more targets on fire. Finally, the Skyhawks, each of them loaded 14 500-pound bombs, 10 precise drops, and all the targets are done. While the judges are checking the targets, our pilots return with a full load of rockets and fire them at the burning remains of destroyed tanks. We need to proceed to the next stage before they come back with mixed loadouts. Stage 3. Assault with guided weapons. We'll take 5 Swedish anti-air guns with 40mm proximity fuse HE rounds for targets. They're too dangerous to approach, so high-altitude attacks are a must. The Italian and the French planes use their Nord missiles on 2 targets and return to base. The German and British planes show a better result, 4 successful Nord and Bullpup launches, respectively. Next, we see the American pilot. With no rush, they destroy all the targets with 5 missiles and go back to the airfield empty. The Israeli pilot is the only one with 3 Maverick missiles on board, launch and forget. And while they're on their way, the pilot sets up the sight and drops conventional bombs on the rest of the anti-air guns, all while flying horizontally. Quite an unusual style, but it works perfectly. Let's begin the award ceremony. The bronze goes to the French Super Mystère for its good balance. The silver is shared by the British Scimitar for its best speed and 4 bullpups, and the American Skyhawk for its excellent suspended armament. And the winner today is the Israeli A4N for its amazing speed and the most advanced suspended armament. Let's give our pilots some rest, shall we? Meanwhile, we'll answer some of the questions you ask us in the comments. The first question was sent by a player called Ezekiel Malik Moraga. The A-10 is actually more agile even than other jets like the F-4 Phantom and MiG-21. Hi there, you are right, to a degree. The A-10 does have a shorter turn time than many fighters, but only due to its low speed. An experienced fighter will simply avoid such a slow dogfight, instead using its higher thrust-to-weight ratio and breaking the distance. Tanker Bricks asked, how do you play the AMX-13 SS-11? Hi, Tanker Bricks. It's a typical light tank with good mobility, weak armor, and a decent gun. We've discussed playing such machines not so long ago in episode 300 of The Shooting Range. As for the SS-11 missiles, you won't need them often, maybe when you meet a very thick enemy at a long distance. You can also try to use them against an enemy with their main caliber damaged. Another question comes from Diedrich Hagelstein. How do you fire rockets fast without spamming the button for it? Hey, Diedrich. The easiest way to do it is to assign a key in Controls, Aircraft, Weaponry. The one you need is called Fire Rocket Salvo. Stuart McLean writes, stop calling it the Thunderbolt. That was the P-47. This is the Thunderbolt II. Hello, Stuart. You're absolutely correct. The A-10 is the Thunderbolt II. But we think we can drop the 2 when it's obvious which plane we mean. It's not like it's making the A-10 less dangerous. And the last comment for today was written by Mateus Costa. What do you think about a new top-tier planes triathlon? Hi, Mateus. We've been thinking about it, but decided to wait just a little longer to have new planes for every nation and avoid using old ones in the new triathlon. So have a little patience, please. A new top fighter triathlon's coming. That's it for today, folks. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment, and the next episode will premiere the following Sunday at 4 p.m. GMT or noon Eastern Time. Subscribe and click the bell if you don't want to miss our next videos. Don't forget to pull on the brakes before driving your tank. Leave a like, share your thoughts and comments, and see you next week.